Hey, welcome to the Gig Life Podcast. I'm your host, Stevie Taylor. Episode 93, Rob Rhodes. Here we go. My guest today is Rob Rhodes. Rob is a singer, guitarist, entertainer, entertainment manager and band owner. Born and raised in Sydney, Rob relocated to the New South Wales far north coast in 2015. As well as all the music stuff Rob's done, he's also been a hotel pub manager, a restaurant manager and a venue manager. When COVID-19 hit, Rob used that time to create a couple of Facebook live shows to keep himself busy and to stay in touch with his friends and his fans. One of those being the Musicians Inn. In this conversation today, Rob and I talk about his career to this point, the effects of COVID-19 on the music industry, a little bit on health and well-being, some insights into performance, entertainment management and hotel management, amongst a bunch of other things. A very giving, selfless, hard-working and insightful man, Rob Rhodes is the real deal. Hope you dig this conversation as much as I did. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Rob Rhodes. All right, I think we're rolling. Yo, Rob Rhodes, how are you, man?
Good, Stevie. How are you?
Not too bad. Welcome to Gig Life Podcast.
Man, thanks for having me.
Sweet as. Now, we met, well, not in person, but a couple of months ago, you invited me to your Musicians Inn live stream musician show, and we did an episode on podcasting, which was really cool. It was a good night. That I really enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been a good little project and a good excuse to stay in touch with friends and make new ones. And I'll have to get you back on, mate.
For sure, that'd be cool.
I've got some topics that are in your wheelhouse. So.
Great, fantastic, man. I'll be there. I loved it. It was really good, and it was one of my first live stream experiences, like being on the other side. I did try to live stream like early on, like just with my phone. Like usually on a Saturday morning, I'll come into my studio and I might start recording intros for the podcast that I've done and stuff. And so I thought, I'll just sort of set up the camera and record it. Man, I was nervous as fuck, eh? I don't know how you do
I think
it.
I get more nervous with the pre-recorded thing because it gives me too much opportunity to think.
Okay.
And when you do the live thing, it's just, I think it's like playing live to recording as well.
Right.
There's just like, it goes out there and you don't have to worry about editing and making sure it looks perfect and sounds perfect. It's It's in the moment. And I just like that instant interaction with the audience, you know, as a musician.
Yeah. Do you think it comes about from that though, from being a live musician? It kind of gives you that same sort of buzz in a sense. And you've got an audience too, haven't you? Like they're there.
Yeah.
And they're talking to you. And yeah.
Absolutely. That instant, you know, gratification that you get. I think I'm definitely tuned to that and have noticed just coming back playing to seated audiences from doing live streams is, you know, it's the live streams were great and I got used to it, but now you're back out there and listening to people clap and cheer and just having a good time. It's something that can't be taken for granted.
Yeah. Did you ever have like one of those sample buttons with the clapping? So like when you're doing the live streams, you hit the sample button. Yeah.
No, I never did that. But you know what? When I first started doing solo gigs, I never really took them serious. And I had a sample button at those gigs. And I just always hit the boo button.
Oh, that's cool. Now let's talk about COVID just for a little bit. I don't want to focus on it too much. Obviously, it's here and we're dealing with it, and I know it's affected you pretty full on in regards to gigs and stuff. And again, a lot we're just talking about. The flip side is that you started some live streaming and that kept you busy during that time. So leading up to COVID, before COVID sort of hit, what was in the pipeline? What got blown out?
Oh man, everything got blown out. We had with Living in the 70s, which is my 70s tribute show. We were just about to book the 110th show for 2020. And I had 50 or 60 other solo, duo, trio wedding gigs as well.
Oh, Jesus.
I think I did the maths the other day, and before last weekend, I'd done 8 of 80 gigs that were in the calendar over this time.
Right.
And that's happened in the last 5 or 6 weeks, those 8 gigs. But I think it's 10 now after the weekend. So,
right.
Yeah, it's took a massive toll, and yeah, we just couldn't do anything about it. So it was try and take stock of everything and plan for the future. I think I told you in our preamble before the Musicians In podcast that I saw it coming pretty early. And I know Peter Northcote talked about this too. Prepared for it, prepared my guys to stop spending, no big purchases.
Yeah, right.
This was in late February, I think.
Yep.
And sat down with the wife.
You saw it February.
Yeah.
Wow, good on you.
Late Feb. Yeah. And just sat down with the wife, looked at our savings, looked at how long we could last on that savings, which at that time, without any government assistance being announced, was 3 months. And thankfully that job seeker came in. I got that before the rush that everybody hit,
right,
and the crash of the website. So I was in before that.
Oh, good.
And then JobKeeper. So we've, honestly, we've been very lucky. Stayed busy and with a few of these projects, and mentally that's helped me a lot. We've all had our struggles, but it's I'm ready to come out of it though. And as you would have heard, I'm just up on the border of New South Wales and Queensland.
Yep.
So they've chucked a big hurdle in our way to continue our comeback where we were. So I'm just letting it rest for a little while, and then I'll start emailing and calling local members and organize letters from venues and stat decks and whatever else, and just to try and make these gigs we've got coming up happen in Queensland.
So you had, correct me if I'm wrong, but just this last weekend you had a band gig booked, and you've got a couple of guys down here in New South Wales, is that right?
Well, they're all up. They're all up here, but right. Yeah, I've got one keyboard player's in Alstonville, which is just west of Ballina.
Right.
And then Darren, who I think you know, who plays drums with us, he's down a bit closer to Grafton near Angowrie,
right,
which is 2 hours south of, 2.5 hours south of the border. So they're definitely in what Queensland have classed the hot zone.
Right.
I'm in what they call the border bubble. So I can go as far north as the Gold Coast Shire. So I can go to Ormo, but I can't go to Brisbane or the Sunny Coast, Sunny Coast is the majority of my gigs with the 70 show. And 80 to 90% are all in Queensland. So to be over this side of the border is it's a very tricky. It looked all right until they closed it. We'd been back gigging. The weekend just gone, we had our second gig back. And at the end of the month, we've got 3, one in Surfers Paradise, one in Caloundra, and then one in Coolangatta, which looks like unless the border opens or a miracle happens and we can get exemptions, we're going to have to cancel those gigs too.
Man. So how's that messed with your psyche? Because, I mean, it's like, you've been in the shit place and you're starting to find your way out of it, and the gigs are coming back. It's all looking good again, and then that.
Yeah, it's frustrating because one of the band members isn't on any government assistance. So coming back, it's helped him. And just the momentum, we started to announce gigs. I put another ticketed show on sale, and because of the uncertainty, that just the ticket sales of that have dried up. So toying with, do we cancel it? Do we hold on because it's mid-September and things can change very quickly? So you're trying to do your best, but you can only get kicked so many times when you're planning for the future. Like, I invested big money in a new PA and lighting, and I went the other way and just went, hey, they're going to move us in these times from the main bars and the public bars into their auditoriums. And that's what it was looking like when we came back. A lot of venues said, yeah, we're going to have to move you to the auditorium. Is that all right? And I'm like, I'm prepared. I've got a big PA now and I'm ready. And then for all those gigs, within 3 days of being confirmed, they were all got pretty much all the New South Wales ones were cancelled again within a week,
Has there been any talk of, like, you kind of mentioned exemptions there, but, like, can you not, like, prove to them that you've been tested, or, isn't there something they can put together? Because you're talking about livelihoods here, not just yours. I'm talking about the hundreds, thousands of musicians that need to play and need to gig. They must put something like that together.
They've got what they call a border bubble, which is called an X pass. So being here in Pottsville, I can cross the border. I don't have to have a reason, but I can border hop and I can go as far north as Ormo, which is the north of the end of the Gold Coast. So that's all within my rights to do that, and I can go and do that work. But because I had a gig at Byron Bay on Sunday, meant that I can't cross the border for 14 days. So I have to isolate for 14 days. So I've cancelled a couple of gigs in the hope so I cancelled 2 gigs so that I can hopefully pick up 4 at the end of the month, because that gives me 14 days in isolation to then go and do those gigs.
And you stay there until you've done those gigs and then come back and then isolate again. Is that right? Or
well, no, because I can hop back and forward across the border at will.
Oh, right. Okay. Gotcha.
As long as I don't go one postcode south of me, then I'm all right.
Wow.
It's a crazy setup, but hey, look, it's something, and it means that I've got both my bass players are in Queensland. So I've got a guy north of Brisbane and I've got a guy on the Gold Coast, and I've got 2 fill-in guys, a fill-in drummer and a fill-in keyboard player, both in Queensland. So as you alluded to, we're going to do stat decks to say that we haven't been to Sydney or Melbourne. If we need to, we'll go get a test to say that we're COVID-free. And I've already spoken to the venues, and they're going to write letters to say, look, these boys can't be replaced. It's a sold-out ticketed event. We're going to lose revenue. And this Premier of Queensland is all about protecting Queensland businesses. So I'm hoping that with all of that paperwork, that they will grant an exemption. But at the moment, I'm leaving them alone because there are people that work in hospitals up here that can't cross the border to go to work. So I think that we should just leave them to sort that out, and the essential workers can get sorted and they get their exemptions. And then I'll be a pest after that.
Cockroaches.
Yeah, that's right.
That's something Victor Round said to me a couple of years ago when I interviewed him. All musicians are cockroaches, man. Whatever happens, there could be explosions and bombs and buildings falling down. We just come out when we're ready.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, man, let's roll it back. Early days, Rob Rhodes. You're from Sydney originally, am I right?
Yeah, Southwest, born and raised.
Yep. When did music become sort of prevalent?
Oh, look, from a very early age, my parents were I think my dad actually played drums when he was really young before being that generation, the baby boomers went out to work pretty quickly. So he kind of gave up on that dream and started laying bricks with his old man. But their record collection was killer, man. My dad, Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, Status Quo, Doobie Brothers, The Stones, Party Boys, Hollies, like all of that stuff. Joe Walsh. And then Mum, she had the tearjerkers, the Neil Sedakas and the crooners like Barry Manilow, but she loved the Beatles too, and the Kinks and Dave Clark 5. So it's just always so much music around the house, and there was Countdown and Sounds on the TV, and later on Rage. So man, our house was full of music. My dad played footy at a pretty high level back in the day, and so there were parties, and it was just stacks of vinyl, dozens of people, just music playing till all hours. So yeah, really early on, man, completely exposed to music.
What about playing? Was it always guitar to start with, or did you start off singing along to stuff, and if it was guitar, was there a moment, was there a guitarist, a solo that you heard that was like, man, that's me?
I started year 8. I began on saxophone. I was in primary school choir, but I mainly honestly, I mimed the whole time in choir until the teacher walked past, and then I would sing. I saw it as an excuse to get out of class, back in primary school. That was my first visit to the opera house, and I never actually did any of the concerts though. I always had an excuse to not turn up to the concerts. I'd just go to the rehearsals because they got me out of school. And then year 9 elective popped up. I didn't stick with saxophone very long, a few months. The year 9 electives came up, and there was keyboard and guitar. So it wasn't just music class, which we'd done the standard music classes through high school. So I ticked both. I'm like, I want to learn keyboard and guitar. And you know what happens with that sort of stuff? They go, no, the classes are at the same time, so pick one.
So Eddie Van Halen did that. He played keyboards and guitars.
That's absolutely right. But so I chose guitar. And so for 2 years in high school, we had Mr. K, Mr. Kuzmierski, who taught us just whatever we wanted. There was no standard music teaching. It was, here are the chords. What songs do you want to learn? Here's some basic scales. And it was mostly about preparing for performance. So you'd have 2 school concerts a year where you'd perform. And I think in the second year is when I started to write my own songs, which then spawned me on to start singing. And yeah, the rest is history. I think my fondest memory of, obviously, my dad's record collection, guitarist galore. But when I started MTV on Channel 9 with old Richard Wilkins, late night, they did a Guitar Heroes special, and just about everything on that, I wore that VHS out. It had Van Halen on it. It had, I think at that time, the biggest influence was Eric Clapton's 24 Nights.
Oh, man.
And so
same here.
Oh, mate, what a band, eh?
That VHS, there was the 3-4 versions of it, but, you know, I may have mentioned this before in a podcast, but I've got images in my head of Steve Ferroni playing those Sunburst Pearl drums, you know, incredible. Nathan East on bass and Phil and Gaines on keyboards, and, man, it was killer. And it was that band there, that little 4-piece. That's the one I watched over and over again. And I think the first one was, it had it was a lot of the Derek and the Dominoes type sort of stuff early on, wasn't it? And then when that sort of 4-piece came out, and then I think the last one was the full band.
and the orchestra where they did Bell Bottom Blues and
man,
some of his soundtrack stuff that Clapton had worked on, and the blues stuff with Buddy Guy, and you're just sitting there going, oh man, this guy 24 nights at what's that place in London where it was recorded?
Albert Hall,
that's it. 24 nights at the Royal Albert Hall, and just the different incarnations of the band. And I think that sort of stuck with me because every sort of project I've been a part of, I've tried to think, okay, how can we offer the same band in a different way all of the time? And now I think that subconsciously just embedded in me with everything I've done in my sort of music career.
And because, I mean, what you're saying, that's what you're doing now, isn't it? Like I was looking at your website or your different websites, and you have got different incarnations of your group. And I mean, I don't think that's not an original concept, but the way you've got it set up, it looks very professional, and you can go out as a solo, as a duo, your band. You can provide session musicians, all that sort of stuff. It's set up really good.
Yeah, that was the idea behind Road Trip Entertainment was just to have a small staple of acts that, I'm a part of all of them. That's the clue that
idea,
binds
isn't it? Yeah.
But it's having so much experience in the hospitality industry, running hotels, that every venue needs something different.
Yep.
They have. So that was behind that idea too, is, one venue down the road's got $600 for a duo. But then they might only have $600 for a band or a trio. So it's like, okay, well, instead of taking a pay cut and saying to everybody, you got to go pay for $150, it's gone, well, if your budget's $600, this is what entertainment I can offer you. Mm-hmm. Instead of taking pay cuts or whatever, it's just like, okay, well, you've got that. I think the solo is best suited for you. Or if you don't think you can carry a concept band, then maybe it's just mix covers and we use a trio, or so it's being adaptable, which I learned in the 12 years of being full-time playing in Sydney, is just being able to adapt to the changing trends out there, which can happen overnight. We saw it in Sydney with the lockdowns. That's what sort of got me out of the industry in the first. Took a couple of years off because, again, I saw that coming and all the venues just stopped live entertainment.
Yep.
Just preparing and adapting, I think, is a good skill to have.
I want to ask you a little bit later on about the hotel management and venue managing and that kind of stuff, because that's quite interesting. Well, let's go back. Now, you watched the 24 Nights. It was inspirational and stuff. Did you go home and start trying to mimic Clapton? Did you have a teacher at that stage, or you just working it out yourself?
Completely self-taught, man,
Yep.
Which I have regrets about, but I also have, I'm happy with how I went about it. I used to just jam along with records. I never learnt any songs really. I used to stack 50-cent pieces on top of the records to get them to slow down to concert pitch. Because I don't know if you remember, I think you're a bit younger than me, but all the old LPs used to spin at 33 1/3.
Yep.
And then the record players just became 33.
Yeah.
I think
I do remember. I'm probably a little bit older than you think. How old do you think I am?
I think you're about 39, 40 maybe.
Nah, 45, man.
Oh, dude, you're older than me.
Oh, am I? There you go.
Yeah. I'm 44, man.
I was saying this the other day. I've just been in these situations this last month, 6 weeks, where just about everyone I've talked to, not just on the podcast, but in different things, they say their age, and then I realise I'm older than them, and I just feel old.
Yeah, but dude, you wear it well, as Rod Stewart said.
Thanks, man.
So I think my dad, when I was learning guitar, my dad said something to me, and he said, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? Where do you want to take this thing? And I said, So I was probably 16, I think, at the time, or 17, and I'd gone out. I'd left school to chase my dream of playing music full time, and I'm laboring for him, and he says to me, "Where do you want to take this?" And I said, when Santana comes on the radio, and it's Carlos, and when Blackmore comes on, it's him and Clapton. I said, that's what I want. Like, I want to just develop my own sound, my own tone. So I intentionally didn't learn to play songs unless I had to for a gig. And then I would just learn the basics of it. I've gotten much better at it now, but I would just learn the basics and to take my own spin on it. Yep. I might have more gain, less gain. I might turn something on. I might use a Les Paul when it's a Strat on the recording. Just try to bring my own thing to it, and I think I've accomplished that in anonymity.
Yeah, right.
but that was what I set out for, was just to carve out my own thing, rather than learning and becoming a kind of mimic, because I saw that really early on with a couple of players that I grew up with. That, man, God, they could shred. They could play one or Fade to Black from start to finish without making a mistake, and I'd be sitting there going, "Oh yeah, that's cool." And then we'd get in a band situation and go, "Oh, let's play a 12 bar, or let's play Sunshine of Your Love, or some Cold Chisel song, and let's just jam it. Let's improvise." And those guys didn't know what to do. They would just stand there trying to play those licks that they learnt from Metallica, and it just would fall seriously flat. And to the point where they would come up to me and go, "Man, how are you doing that improvise? Are you practicing that stuff?" Man, it's 5 notes, hey? It just repeats. And here's the shapes. It's really, you just got to feel it. And that's what I took away from a lot of those, the Hendrixes and the Claptons and that pentatonic-based thing, which I've used this COVID thing to break out of quite a bit, but that's my comfort zone, and that's where I think that, did I answer your question there?
Yeah, man. You mentioned Sunshine of Your Love, and that was one of the songs on the 24 Nights that 4-piece band did. And because when Ginger Baker played the drums originally for Cream, it was dun 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 dun. It was quite simple, right? But then Steve Ferrani went dun 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 digga 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 dun 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 digga digga digga, and I still have that picture in my head of him playing that, and he plays traditional grip as well, and like I said, with that Sunburst Pearl drum kit, it's ingrained in my memory.
Man, it's just there, absolutely.
Yeah. Now your voice, when did you develop your voice? Because I think you got a fantastic voice. It's I think that's definitely, it's probably it's pretty obvious, but that's definitely a part of your sound. It's unique. I was listening to your EP today, and I can't compare your voice to anybody, because that's what I do sometimes. I'll listen to music and go, that person kind of sounds like, I couldn't do it, man. You're all on your own there. Yeah,
thanks,
it's really cool. Good on you.
I've got big influences early on. A lot of the Australian singers, so Diesel and Jimmy Barnes and Nick Barker, that raspy rock thing, and obviously the 60s and 70s stuff. I discovered Paul Rodgers, who honestly has the greatest rock voice of all time. And if anybody hasn't seen him with Queen, just listen to what he does to those songs when he was in Queen.
Right.
Just makes them his own, and that's a really difficult thing to do. Man, early on, I feel like I just screamed. Like, I just feel like it was Jimmy Barnesing every weekend and blowing my voice out.
Right.
Over the years, it's gotten, I worked on it a lot, just from gigging, man. It's just gigging fitness. Yep. I had a vocal coach for about 6 lessons who just taught me how to breathe because I was nearly passing out in those early days doing 4-hour gigs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know where it came from, because really early on I was pretty terrible. Mum used to, but then I was trying to sing Van Halen's Dreams at 14, and Mum would yell down the hallway, "Shut up, you can't sing."
Oh,
but
show you.
But that's all right, man. Like, you got to take your knocks. You know, I've heard way worse stuff in pubs being yelled at me. So it's just like I've always had that fight response. So it's like, well, if I can't sing, I've just got to work harder at it. And I didn't really sing again until I started writing in those last couple of years of high school. And that's sort of where it started to develop, and then going to jam nights and singing the odd song, and going from there. And I don't have, again, no training. I don't know what my range is. I don't know how my voice is going to be when I get to a gig until I sing the first couple of songs.
Right.
I'm a total noob as far as that sort of stuff goes, but I'm lucky because there's not much that I can't sing. And in recent years, my highs have gotten higher and my lows have gotten stronger, and that's something we could talk about, but that's diet based. But I don't know where it comes from. I think it's just a gumbo of all of my influences that I've just sort of mentioned there.
Right. So saying diet based, you're vegan. So yeah. So how long have you been vegan? I'm just trying to go back on the voice thing. So there's a definite correlation between you not eating meat, becoming vegan, to your voice being able to get those highs now. That's
absolutely, man. 5 years I've been vegan.
Yep.
And it was almost instant. You know, within a couple of weeks, I noticed that my voice recovered faster.
Right.
And my range was extended because of that. It all comes down to inflammation, right? So if you don't have inflammation, things heal faster. Things are less impeded, so there's no swelling. And there was nothing. It seemed like there was nothing in my way to prevent my voice from reaching its potential, let's say. I think it was sort of hamstrung by my diet before. And just when I came out of the 2 years off, it just went like, it was like turning a switch. And all of a sudden I went, I could never sing that before. And how am I doing this? And then I would do 5 nights in a row without breaking a sweat, really, like waking up in the morning worrying, am I going to be able to sing today? And it was, man, it's been a revelation, honestly.
That's awesome, man. That's really cool. And you also, you've stopped drinking as well.
As he sips tea. Yeah. I quit drinking, I don't know, 14, 15 months ago.
Okay.
And hey, that was a blessing during COVID too. It was one less expense I had to worry about.
Geez, I think I doubled my amount of drinking.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure I'm not the only one. So was that the stop drinking out of necessity as well, or was that a challenge to yourself to do that?
Oh, look, like all of us, I would do, a few months, a year where I'd go off it, and but then you'd go years without taking a break. Being raised in and around pubs and then working in pubs from 18, whether it was, behind the bar or on stage, it's just been, that's the lifestyle that I've been around. So the culture of that is definitely embedded. But a little incident towards the middle of last year, and I went on a bender, and I just thought, this isn't helping anyone. It's definitely not helping me. And so I just decided, look, I just want to try and quit. My wife and I wanted to try, well, I'm getting personal here, we wanted to try for a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently it's a 90-day cycle to get alcohol out of your system.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my first goal. And then the other reason to quit drinking was New South Wales brought in an instant loss of license over 0.05.
Okay.
So it's kind of like this perfect storm of reasons tapping me on the shoulder to, hey, look, don't drink. Do 1,000. Well, pre-COVID, I was doing 1,000 kilometers a week to gigs.
Mm-hmm.
So to lose your license, that's it for me, because, you know, the wife isn't going to drive me to every gig, and it's pretty difficult to carpool when at the extremes of our band members, we live 6 to 7 hours apart. So it's, it just became a no-brainer really for me.
Congratulations, man. Well done.
Thanks.
Well done. Now let's talk a little bit about gigging in the Sydney scene. It's something I did for a long time. Now, were you playing in sort of local cover bands, or was it always sort of your original stuff that you were pushing at that time?
Look, the scene where, especially Southwest Sydney, it was you were kind of expected to play originals and covers. So when you got booked, and that's something that's sadly missing from the scene these days, is, you know, you throw one or two originals in each set. You'd do a CD, you'd sell CDs at your gig, you would record, and that was part of it. So yeah, even early on, my brother and I had a band together, and we had a 13-track like recording that we did. And just those songs, there was 15 or 16 songs in the end, I think, that always sort of made into the set every night. And then the next band, which I joined, which was Juvenile Justice, changed to DVS, that we did the same thing with that. I was like, well, let's start writing, and we'll put them into our show, and recorded a CD and did a little single that sold just at gigs. There was no real release thing. It was just, hey, here's a few extra bucks. So yeah, that was early on. And then it was, I got out of the full-time working thing to go and chase playing music full-time. And that's when it sort of entered that corporate gigging world with an agency and bookings and contracts. And that's when the originals sort of went by mostly the last 20 years or so.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. So what was some of the agencies you were working for or doing work for? But did you actually work as an agent or in that environment, or were you sort of?
No, I used to just work direct with venues most of the time in those early days. We're just playing the locals or answering an ad in the drum media, you know, when you wanted to step out and play the Forest Inn or North Point Tavern, you know, all those ones that we all played back in the day.
Yeah.
But then when I got into the corporate sort of scene, when I say corporate, I just mean, you know, not doing corporate gigs, but just in that with an agent and wages and whatever.
Yeah.
That was, I worked with Sphere. So there was a band called Rock Dot Now. And so that was with Sphere. So man, some heady days there that people, I know we have a lot of mutual friends and they all remember those days. And as good as they were, the stories I heard from the 80s and the 70s, it doesn't even compare. But for us,
we got our 90s.
Yeah,
90s,
that's right.
2000s, that's us.
Oh, the Mean Fiddler, you know, when the Mean Fiddler was pumping, there's 1,500 people in that beer barn. It's a feeling I'll never forget. And the early days of the Three Eyes Monkeys and some of those.
It's a shit lug that. Oh, fuck that.
Dude, I got a great story about that place. So
Okay.
I'd played it for years, and then the owner got in touch with me to teach his son guitar. And I was living at Clovelly at the time, and they had this beautiful place at Bronte. And so that sort of started. And I remember we used to be able to use the dumbwaiter and take all the stuff up the dumbwaiter. But, there's a couple of dumb musicians that ruined the dumbwaiter for us. So you had to carry everything up. At the time, I had this quad box that used to be owned by Mark Lizotte, and it had 4 12L EV12Ls in it. So it weighed about 70 kilos. And I just remember saying to Steve after one of the lessons, I said, "Oh, mate, do you reckon you can let me use the dumbwaiter? Like, just let the staff know that it's okay for Rob to use the dumbwaiter, because this thing, I can't carry it." And so he's, "Yeah, mate, don't go. Just say I said it was all right." So I used to be able to just chuck all my rig in the dumbwaiter and take it up. And poor old drummer had to carry his stuff up the stairs.
That's the worst.
But I always helped, man. I'm a lugger. Hey,
Yeah,
so
that's good.
we always helped each other lug. But that gig was killer. You'd go into a trio gig on a Wednesday night and be pumping. Scruffy Murphys, I did fill-ins a long time for Stephen Way. For Anthems and a couple of other bands there. And, man, it was just pumping all the time. And it's a shame that I don't know where the next generation of musicians, where they're going to cut their teeth. Because,
that's it.
a lot of those gigs are gone, and the scene, well, you could probably speak more to it than I can. I haven't been in Sydney for 5 years, but I still know everybody there. But everybody's doing more gigs for less money, and they're not the greatest gigs in the world either.
No, that's right. Exactly right. So the restaurant managing and the venue management and also the hotel management stuff, were you doing that in Sydney, or that's something that you've done over these last 5 years?
Yeah, well, when I turned 18, I got a job at the local pub there in Ingleburn. I don't know if you know where that is, but
yeah, man. Played there many times.
Yeah.
Lucky to get out a few times as well.
Now, you probably got out because of me, mate. That's why.
Oh, maybe.
8 years there I spent, and like anything, you get trapped. You get trapped by money. You get trapped by you get comfortable, and every time I tried to leave that place, they would give me more money. And so I stayed, and it took a lot to leave and then try to chase that, play music full time, because I had a lot of friends that were struggling doing that. And I knew it would be a tough slog, but so I did that for 8 years. I was 2IC there towards the end, doing everything, man, from purchase orders to, invoicing. And then, I went and I played music full time for 12 years. And then after that was when the whole Sydney lockdown thing came in. So I went and applied for a job at ALH and got the 2IC job at the Narrabeen Sands, and pretty much immediately took control of the entertainment program there. So just, mate, that was a great time, because not only did I have success in building that venue up to a great gig again, but I got to hang with so many people that I'd hardly spent any time with over the years, fellow musicians that we'd been friends on MySpace and then Facebook, but never really met because we were all just gigging, We even shared band members at times, but the Dave Whites and the Nicky Curtis and Bernie Sedgerton, and then guys like Lockie Doley and Krishna Jones. Like, I just booked everyone I knew was good, and just, it was so much fun, man. It brought a lot of joy. And even booked Diesel there, and cool. got to hang again with Mark, and that was great. That was my last day at the Sands before they gave me my own pub to run.
Right.
And yeah, so I went to pinball then before moving up here and running a pub on the Gold Coast, which didn't last very long because, yeah, that environment didn't suit me. They weren't focused on food or entertainment. They were focused on other things, which weren't really a priority for me.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. Now,
so I went back to playing music. Yeah.
Yeah, good on you. Now with the Sands, when did you meet Darren Jackson?
Ooh. So Darren and I have been friends for, I don't know. Well, I met him maybe 20 years ago, not quite, 17, 18 years ago. He did sound one night at Tracks nightclub, Tracks at Epping.
Epping, yep.
And he heard me sing and he goes, "Oh, you'd be interested in, maybe joining my band full time. The singer's going back to New Zealand." And I said, "Yeah, man, I'm up for anything. I hardly ever say no to anything." So they had a band that played the Stain Hotel in Manly every Sunday. And at that time, I think they'd been every Sunday for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I became a mixed nut. And, that's sort of how Darren and I met. And we've been sort of in and out of bands together ever since. And, yeah, he moved up here not long after I did.
Mm-hmm.
And just as things were starting to evolve with the 70s show, he came into the picture and I went, "Hey, coming out another element. I need someone kicking me in the bum. Even when you're driving the bus, you need somebody to just go, 'Hey, this will work better,' or that doesn't work." And honestly, man, he's one of the best in the business as far as drummers who are musicians and can see what's happening out there, because you guys have the best seat in the house as far as understanding what's happening on the dance floor, what's not working, what could work, changing up grooves, all of that. And he's honestly one of the best in the business, and that's why, I dragged him into living in the 70s, just to take it to the next level, man, because you do need that person to bounce ideas off. And he's been in the business a long time, and I trust him and I love him. And yeah, that's our story.
He's a cool cat. Yeah. When you mentioned the Sand, because he was looking after that room. The last band that I played in Endless Summer Beach Party for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And then when we would play there, Darren was looking after that room, and also the Collaroy. Beach club,
when I left Narrabeen, I wanted to leave it with somebody I trusted.
Yep.
And I left it. I asked Darren if he would take over when I left, and keep it going strong, and he did that.
Yeah, cool. Hey, I hope you're enjoying this episode of the podcast. As you know, the Gig Life podcast is free. You don't have to pay anything ever. But if you find the value in the Gig Life podcast, you can donate or leave a tip. Go to thegiglifepodcast.com, click on that donate button, and give as little or as much as you like, and just know that anything you give will go back into creating the great content for this podcast. All right, back to the episode. Now, what's the hairiest moment you've seen in a hotel, like being that hotel manager? Have you got any stories you can tell there?
Well, I was just sitting with some friends in Suffolk Park the other night, and we were talking about this exact same thing. So,
okay, cool.
Oh man, I've seen guns, I've seen knives, machetes, I've seen some of the bloodiest fights. Like UFC got nothing on some of these pub brawls.
Yeah.
Dude, there was a couple of Anzac Day is usually the worst. Fights breaking out, pool cues. But one of the best ones was actually I was playing a gig, and it was kind of it was an okay Southwest Sydney gig out. I won't mention the hotel's name, but let's just say it's near Bankstown Airport. And so we're into the second set, I think, and all of a sudden there's a pool table in front of us and a fight breaks out and they get pushed outside, and every local from the public bar on the way out grabs a pool cue or a jigger or something and runs out to the car park. And, I just bought like a $4,000 Gretsch Duo Jet. So I just took that off in the case underneath the stage and picked up my Strat. And the manager comes running, just take a break. We're going to go sort this out. Before we knew it, there was pole air. There was about 50 people brawling in the car park. There was 8 to 10 police cars. And obviously all our cars are out there getting, people shoved into. And, man, like it's, there's been some crazy, absolute crazy times, that I wouldn't wish on my enemy some of the things that I've witnessed in pubs. And that's the thing. Like, I'd really love to get on a lobby group for the music industry, and talk to politicians about, from the perspective of someone who's been inside pubs for 20 odd years, and say, look, nothing's changed. It's better than it's ever been. It's just that people have phones and you get bad press when people put stuff up on Twitter or on Facebook or whatever, or send it to a news outlet. That's what's made it worse. It's way better than it used to be. There was no people getting cut off. There was no nothing. There was smoking inside. Like we've all done gigs. I remember, to go back to the Three Wise Monkeys, man, you couldn't see 4 people deep from the front of the stage.
I used to have to smoke when I played.
Oh yeah,
I don't know. It's just, I mean, I was almost a chain smoker at that stage. But I'd have the smoke in my mouth and the smoke's going in my eye, and my eyes are watering, and then I'd drop the smoke on my head, and I'd burn a hole in the head, but the head wouldn't split, because when you're burning that hole, you're also sealing the cut.
Yeah.
So I had one drum head at one stage. It had 3 little holes in it, and I left it there as long as I could. Eventually, it let go. But I know. Yeah, man, those were the days. Yeah,
but I think that's what our industry needs. It needs people that have been in there and lived it, and can just give them some perspective, because. Even let's take this COVID thing, for instance, and I've been out there playing gigs where everyone has to be seated, and you've got police walking in on an hourly basis and threatening breaches to these places because someone's standing up. Look, I know that I've got a lot of friends who are police, and I know they do a tough job, but there has to be some common sense, and it comes down to legislation. And these politicians have a black and white approach to know, if you want a venue, if you want to do this, if you want to put on entertainment, if you want to, have a license, then you're responsible for everybody else's behavior. Now, I've been in some situations where I'm lucky I've been there when something's happened, in order to pull it up and prevent catastrophe, which could ruin the hotel. You get a breach and your insurance goes up and your licensing fees go up. Like everything, you just get hit one after the other when you have an incident, right? So, but no one's held accountable personally. It's like, it's not, why is it a third party's responsibility to police individuals' behavior? Like we're sanctioned babysitters, basically. And until we can get that right, until we can make people accountable for their decisions, it's going to be really hard to get this industry back anywhere where it needed to be, because this has just given councils and local government, state, federal government more impetus to put restrictions on venues. And now it's, you got to be seated, and you got to be this far apart. And I agree with all that stuff. But if you get an on-the-spot fine in Melbourne for not wearing a mask, then why can't they just go, oh, okay, well, that person is not doing the right thing in the venue. Let's go and give them the grief and not walk up to the venue manager or the duty manager and say, right, you're nicked because this guy's not doing the right thing.
Yeah, right.
It's
I understand
just,
that.
it does my head in, and that's just the problem with society. It's not going to be fixed anytime soon. But I kind of went off on a tangent there, but I thought it's kind of relevant.
Yeah, yeah. So what's it going to take to turn that around then, in your opinion?
I don't know. I don't think you can. I think society's come too far where it's always someone else's fault. It's not my fault that I got drunk and punched someone. It's their fault for serving me too much.
Yeah.
It's not my fault that I got in the car and killed someone. It's you shouldn't have let me drive. But I don't know, man. It's what does it take? You have to walk into a venue and sign a waiver to say that you accept personal responsibility for anything that happens within the venue, and the venue's not to blame. Get like America, where everything's about waivers. Everything's about you're taking personal responsibility here. So if anything happens, it's your fault. I hope it doesn't get to that. I was an advocate of a license to drink.
Right.
Because having been in that industry, that again, it's one person can ruin it for everybody.
Yep.
One person, and we saw that with the Sydney lockdowns. That one guy
say that. Yep.
with a one-punch attack shuts the whole city down.
Yep.
Because look, the parents, they had it tough, but you've got some lobby group going after everything. You've got the Daily Telegraph going after venues, and you could see that unfolding, like what they wanted to achieve, and they achieved it. And then for them to get off that horse and step on look what they've done to Sydney. It's shut down, it's closed. Sydney after dark. It's like you can't go after it and then after it go, oh, look what you did. Like you're part of the problem. And yeah, until we can get past that, I don't know what the solution is. But yeah, that license to drink, man, if you take people's passports away. If they mess up in public, hey, you're never traveling again. You can't go anywhere. You can't leave the country. But no one wants to take responsibility. Again, they want, they go drink driving and they take it to court and go, oh, but I need my license. Why didn't you think of that before you went out 3 times the limit and dropped your kids at school, putting everybody's lives in danger? It's just become, everything's just messed up, man. I don't know. I'm a positive person and you can go down this rabbit hole, but personal responsibility. I'm a massive advocate of that.
When you find yourself going down those rabbit holes, how do you pull yourself out? What do you say to yourself? Do you go for a walk? Give yourself a slap in the face?
Well, man, I got the beautiful Pacific Ocean kind of just out my door. So
you got some cool views going on there.
Yeah, I can go for a walk, go down the creek, go watch the whales. But what a good trick is just to always see the positives in it. So, and then, everybody's got complaints and criticisms, but my way out is always to offer a solution. So even if nobody hears it, or it's just my wife and I shooting the breeze and brainstorming, it changes your mindset. So it's finding it's one thing to go criticize, but do you have a solution? And if you can come up with a solution, voice it, put it on Facebook. It doesn't matter if no one sees it, but it's habit forming, and just being able to go, oh, I can see a light at the end of the tunnel. If only I could get this to someone. And that sort of comes back to the thing I said earlier about becoming a lobbyist or even getting into politics at some stage, that being able to have that voice and have a solution rather than just saying, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. It should be, no, you can't do that, but you can do this.
Yep.
And that's sort of my way out of it, is always just trying to find a solution to the problem.
Do you spend a lot of time on, besides your live streaming and posting for your gigs and promoting and that kind of stuff, do you find yourself on social media very, very much?
Ooh, yeah, probably too much, man. I'm trying to pull away from it. It's been responsible for a few breakups in my personal life. Right.
Okay.
Man, just being vegan, you lose friends. But then when
that's shit.
Just introduce politics or anything else, and it stirs up a hornet's nest. And I'm as guilty as anyone going into a room and throwing a grenade just to see what happens. I'm not a troll. I don't like to troll people. I like to try and keep it positive, but give someone a different perspective is important, even if you just change one person's perspective on an argument. But I've kind of gotten away from that. It's more just going in with a positive attitude, or just type your response and then delete it. Like, get it out, vent, and then just put it there and don't click send. Just delete and move on.
Okay, type, send, screenshot, delete.
Yeah, exactly. So
I don't tend to. There's a lot of things that roll me up on social media, but I don't tend to comment. I'd rather, if I see that person, or I'd rather actually have that conversation with somebody.
Yeah,
I don't like doing it on social media, but that's just me.
No, I'm very. I don't mind being combative and just challenging people.
You posted something the other day. You'd taken a photo, and I think you said it's been quite a combative day today. Had you been on social media and ruffled some feathers? Had you?
Oh, look, there was a couple of things. There was obviously the COVID thing, and people with conspiracy theories and whatever else. And hey, look, if you believe in the conspiracy theory, that's fine. I don't have a problem with you. I've gone down all kinds of conspiracy theories. I don't have a problem with you holding that belief, but don't put people's lives in danger just to prove a point, because the facts are out there. There's people dying, regardless of. I think Ice-T was on the Mark Maron podcast, and he put it best. He said when he was in the military, when the bullets started flying, you took cover. Once you take cover, you find out where it's coming from, and then devise a plan. But this just completely ignoring it, and I don't see the point in that, because as you've seen unfold in Victoria and what's happened now with the Queensland border, those people are just putting all of us behind. They're putting musicians' livelihoods, mental health at risk. But even worse than that, they're putting people in aged care, they're putting doctors, nurses' lives at risk for the sake of saying that you don't believe in something. Well, people don't believe in climate change either, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And it's got to get to that point where something needs to bring us all together, because I feel like at the beginning of this, even go back to the bushfires, man, because that brought the whole country together, right? Nobody thought, bushfires are a hoax. These people's houses aren't burning down. They don't think that. It's on the news. It's real. People's houses are burnt down. Who comes to the rescue? Queen, John Farnham, like every musician and actor gets on. They do a fundraiser for the RFS, and everyone's like, wow, this is great. The whole country comes together. COVID hits, and I would say the majority of people came together for that. Everyone went, yep, we're staying home.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem we had was we contained it by doing that. But because when you don't have a fallout, people go, see, it was nothing to worry about. And you had what happened in Melbourne and everyone went out thinking, oh, we got no problem. And now look, so there needs to be less division. I don't know what brings us together, but it always seems to be tragedy brings us together. But this one hasn't seemed to. It seemed to still split us a little bit out there.
It seems like it has to get. I don't like saying this, but it seems like for a lot of people, they need to see it get a lot worse before they're going to go, oh, okay, I get it now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I always thought the best way to. Okay, let's take we're getting way away from music here, but
doesn't matter, man.
I love this stuff, man. I'm passionate about it. But I thought if you wanted, everyone was whinging about plastic bags being taken out of Coles and Woolworths because they don't, it's inconvenient and they don't think plastic pollution's a problem. Well, grab that island of plastic that's in the Pacific Ocean and make sure it washes up on Bondi Beach, St Kilda, and Manly, and then people that matter, people that have pull and money will go, this is a problem, and it'll be solved overnight. Coca-Cola won't have to use plant-based, bottles, and everything will have to be recycled, and there'll be no plastic packaging in supermarkets. But because it's out there, because it's in Indonesia floating in the middle of wherever, or washing up on Thailand beaches, nobody cares. The people that matter do not care because it's not on their doorstep. But if we could just somehow tow that stuff out here and dump it on those beaches, man, we'll fix this problem overnight.
I gotcha. It's funny, eh? Yeah. It's not funny. It's a
sad,
strange concept.
Yeah.
What do you do outside of music?
Oh man, look, it's before this thing happened, music was all enveloping. Like it's a 7-day-a-week job for anyone that runs a band that's as busy as mine is and is a full-time musician. You understand what it takes to make it successful and maintain it. So it's looking 12 months ahead, it's planning, because we're so far apart. That's if we go to the sunny coast, it's a 3-hour drive for me, 4-hour drive for the keyboard player, and a 5-hour drive for the drummer. You got to try and plan a whole weekend. So it's basically every week is you're a tour manager, Right, so you've got to work out, okay, who's staying where? Are they getting their own accommodation? Do I have to cover that? Are we getting joint accommodation? Is it included? How do I get 3 gigs up there on the same weekend, but the venues aren't too close together to for them to get their noses out of joint? And then it's okay. Well, it's a week of promotion. It's Facebook. It's Facebook marketing, paid marketing. It's just engagement, answering emails, questions. Man, it's an absolute full-time job, honestly, to get, if you want to get to that standard, to get to the next place. Man, we were planning on taking it to the next level, and the amount of work that goes into that is that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, so as far as having time to do other things, it's just whenever I'm not doing music, I try to spend time with my wife. We've been together nearly 18 years. So you get out what you put in. So it's maintaining that relationship as much as possible and making that a big part of my life. But yeah, you do the beach and I go swimming all the time, and
that's cool.
Fairly active kind of dude. I'd like to go, just switch off sometimes and go into the movies for 2 hours, turn your phone off, disappear, come out, answer the 5 missed calls. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it. It's got a couple of friends in Byron, and we jam every now and again just for fun. We have a social band.
That's cool.
So yeah, man, it's all music because I love it. The one thing that having those 2 years off showed me, working anywhere between 60 and 80 hours a week in a pub, is that the worst gig is still a great time. You know, appreciate it. I can play. There was a gig up here on the Gold Coast, and you're like playing in a fishbowl, man. It's, you're a mile away from the audience. There's a perspex screen separating you and the smoking area, and everyone's inside watching the footy. But you know what? You play for 4 hours, hardly get any notice, and 1 or 2 people would, as they're walking out, go, "Man, that was awesome. Thanks a lot." Grab a business card, whatever, and that's all you need. And sometimes I don't even need that. Sometimes I just amuse myself, but it really has to be bad to do that because it's my job to entertain people. So it's engaging in with people that don't want to be engaged with. That just makes it better for everybody. I've really worked hard on that. Coming out of this is being an entertainer first and a musician second. Just all those things that you learn along the way and you see as a venue manager. I'm having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, it's a tough thing to do, but coaching a couple of performers when I was at the Sands, going, "Look, I know this is your thing. I'm not asking you to do anything outside of your thing, but I'm paying you to entertain my patrons. So the least you can do is stand up. I've got a stage here. I've turned the lights off. I've turned the TVs off. Bring lights with you. Focus them on yourself, and stand up and be engaging. Because I'm not paying you to be background. It's not a cafe, and I've got nightlife for background. I want you to make these people's nights. So there was a little bit of, I guess we'd call it a brief, wouldn't we? Every venue has a brief. So that was part of my brief was, I want you guys to be noticed. So, come bring that to the party because no one wants to be, I know I don't want to sit in the corner and be ignored. And it's not why we do it. We do it because we like the attention, and it might be a personality flaw, whatever, but we do it because we want attention. We want that applause. We want that instant gratification. And the least you can do is put yourself in the best position to do that. And that's just was what I'd ask of the performers that came into my venues. Yeah.
Do you see that a lot, or do you see that often with young upcoming acts? We were talking before about how there's not going to be those venues and places that we had to cut our teeth and to go out and play. And are you seeing it were you seeing it back then in those venues of that happening a lot, where kids are coming and sit down or reading everything from an iPad or from sitting? I mean, I see it often, sort of the cafe type sort of thing where people are sitting there and they're singing, but they're reading off their phone. To me, I look at that and don't think that looks professional, and they probably could have done a little bit more work. But what are your thoughts on that?
I might ask you this too, because it's is that because that's the way that the industry has gotten? Like I know that there's an attitude out there that there's not enough gigs for you to hold the same lineup together, right? So if you've got a band, if you're the band leader and you go out and book gigs, that everybody's in 4 or 5 bands, every musician's signed up with Baker Boys or the White Tree or Honey and Stone or any of those other sort of wedding bands and corporate bands, that it's really difficult to hold people in the one group because they just want to play, and you might only have 2 or 3 gigs a month and they want 6. So you got to have 2 or 3 bass players you can call, 2 or 3 drummers. So no one's learning the repertoire. You know, even in some of these more organized things where there's a set list, like a core set list, that people aren't learning the repertoire. They're just bringing an iPad along with them. I think that's because of the way the industry is. There's not enough gigs there anymore. So I can understand why you would see a band out there with people reading iPads. The thing that gets me, that I see a lot, is their promo photos of the bands where they're all staring at a music stand or an iPad. I'm like, that's what you're supposed to be selling yourself, and you're selling yourself staring at, like, how is that your promo picture? Like, I don't that sort of stuff. That's the marketing person in me, you know, because I did a communications diploma. But you look at everything.
Which you realized after a week that that's not what you wanted to do. I remember you talking about that when we did the musicians in.
Yeah, that's right. But so I think that's it. But if you're a soloist, the gigs aren't paid rehearsals. Like, I go back to what I just said about a venue hires an entertainer. They don't hire a shoegazer. If you're going into a cafe and they want to create a vibe where it's just background, they pay you $80 and a meal, that's one thing. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about you're going into a pub or club that's full and people have come out for a good night. You should not be sitting there staring at an iPad. Like me, I have an iPad, okay? I'll put my hand up and there's the odd song when I'm first learning it. I just have the lyrics there as a little fall on because there's only so many songs I can fit in here at one time, and they start to fall out. But it's also my mixer. So I have it on, but I have it nice and low, barely, you know, it's not in the eye line of what people are looking at. It's down near my knees. But it's my mixer, it's my break music, everything's in there.
So you've got it's like a Mackie, you got the Mackie type mixer.
I've got the Soundcraft UI24. So you can understand if the front man or the soloist has got the iPad there for that. But if they're continually like head down staring at this, or it's on a mic stand, you know, like right there. And it's people are like, what are they doing? Like, you know, they're not looking at the audience. They're looking at that thing. And it also becomes a crux because once you start looking at charts all the time, you don't retain. There's something with the brain. It's very hard to retain the information if you don't pull away from it really early on. And so, that back to what you said, it's really quite it's one of those unprofessional things. But back to that, is that with the not being able to retain players, do you think that's one of those reasons why everyone's got charts and iPads?
I don't know, but maybe it's what you were saying too. People are just not in bands that are playing lots of gigs together.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that doesn't happen because it's not the case. I mean, there's hundreds of bands around, but
or they're getting $150 and they don't care.
Possibly, or they've never had. You know, someone has, like you were saying, you had to coach those people. They probably didn't realize they were doing it, and that's what it takes. You know, I know when I was coming up as a player, my dad used to shut me down because I was a little bit arrogant, and people would say, "Hey, great job," and I'd go, "Hey, yeah, I know." You know, it took my dad to say, "Pull your fucking head in," you know, and other little maybe people like that are not getting that person say, "Hey, man, that looks unprofessional." They just think, you know, think it's the right thing.
Is it maybe who they're influenced by too? You know, because possibly. Who are I play with a lot of female singers in the White Tree, and honestly, man, they could all be Australian Idols. Like, they're fantastic. Right. They're all great singers. They dance, they talk, they got the gift of the gab like nobody's business. That was a really kind of thin on the ground thing before. But the young guys that I see aren't really like that. They're sort of more of the sit down acoustic. They're playing the sleepy Angus and Julius Stone, all that sort of stuff, which really doesn't lend itself to being a big show, So I'm sure that the influences and the current music industry is probably a lot to blame because you you mimic what you see on TV. When we were coming up, we were seeing Prince and Michael Jackson and George Michael and Freddie Mercury and all these people were just out there. Whitney Houston, they're just born entertainers, They came from that school of everything was a show. And the industry isn't really a show at the moment for a lot of people. And I don't know. I sort of went off on another tangent there, but I'm thinking
it's all good. It's all good. Yeah. No, that's cool. Now, I asked you earlier to come up with one song that's had, and you can only pick one that's had the biggest influence or biggest impact on you. So I want you to tell me what that song is, and then we're gonna play it and have a bit of a listen, and then we'll have a bit of a chat about it. So if you can tell me who that song is.
Well, yeah, it was tough, but I think I had to come back to Black Knight by Deep Purple.
All right, do you remember the first time you heard this?
Yeah, my dad had it on a 45.
Yep.
And Mum used to go to work on Monday nights checking bingo numbers at the local RSL. And my dad and I would just put records on, grab the squash rackets, air guitar, and this is always the first song, We try to go back and remember, but yeah, it was always, this was the first song. It was we probably played it 4 times a night. It was always the last song we put on. And I remember the video clip and everything about that song is just, yeah. Man, it's got everything. Got great drums, great vocals,
that rock,
killer guitar.
Rock shuffle, man. Yeah, yeah.
John Lord with the distorted, Hammond. Just, like just the drum groove too, man. Like you just sit in that pocket for days.
Ian Pace is a beast, man.
Yeah.
It's coming up to the part where there's that, and then he does this. First time I heard that, I went, "What? The fuck is that?" Oh, it's here. Yeah.
Toms, man. Toms are the sound of the 70s,
Yeah.
Yeah. Another shout out to Daz as far as that goes, man. Love the Toms.
Yeah.
Big part of the sound, the 70s. Something that was they used the Toms in the 70s as part of the grooves.
Yeah.
In the 80s, they were just used for fills. And
yeah, that's right.
Kind of got away from that a little bit, but
they were gated, and gotcha.
Yeah, but just added the bottom end. probably didn't have the bottom end in the production back then. So they had these big floor toms and rototoms and man, just so good. Alex Van Halen, just those 70s drummers, killer.
Cool. All right. What have you got on the horizon in the next 3 months?
Well, up until a week ago, it was looking like we were back. I had 8 or 10 gigs in August, and then I had 15 in September, and the majority was living in the 70s, so full band shows, all in Queensland.
Right.
But that looks like the chances of it happening are very slim if I can't get exemptions. So it's looking like a couple more months sitting on our asses and replacing the band gigs with solo gigs so I can keep working.
Yeah.
And keep the musicians in show going. Trying to come up with.
I want to commend you on that. Through the whole lockdown thing, a lot of live stream stuff came about, and most of it's shit. I've got to say, but I think yours and Pete Northcote's, they're to me they're the standouts. I think I know you guys also, you're doing it to make friends and to keep people together, but you're doing a lot for the people that are coming on the shows as well. You're getting them to talk and making them feel important when maybe they're kind of a little bit down. I think it's great what you're doing. Keep it up.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's sometimes it was supposed to be a 1 hour show, basically. Some have gone 2.5 hours, almost 3 hours. And then, someone will get on. I usually get on at 7:00, which is, half an hour before we go live. And someone will come on and we'll just hang out, chat for 30 minutes or whatever. And then one of them, we were on for an hour after we went off. We were just still talking and hadn't seen people in a long time and just catching up and finding out how all the kids are going and all that sort of stuff. That's been really good from a personal perspective. And that was one of those things like you, man. I'd never done that before. I'd been asked on a couple of times. There's a Gold Coast guitarist up here, Doug DeJong, and he started doing a similar thing. Yeah. And he was trying to do 2 a day. Like, God love him, It was great, but hard to keep.
He was on when I was on there. Him and Doug was there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gabor and Matt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I got inspired because he'd asked me on a couple of times because of my live stream shows that I was putting on. And I'd sort of drafted up an idea for a podcast before all of this, but it kept getting put on the back burner. And I just thought, this is great. This allows me to just plan something a couple of days out and go live, and it is what it is.
Cool.
So I kind of took what he did and adapted it to what I wanted to do, which was kind of like a community help thing for everybody. So, and sort of cover anything in the industry as well as fun stuff, like pedals and whatever, but just cover things that maybe you have to play for years to find out, without taking the fun out of discovering these things yourself. So, because you don't want to just walk up to someone and go, oh, this is how you do it. This is how you become successful. Don't make these mistakes, because most of the fun is in the journey, making those mistakes. Sure. But if you can lend a little bit of the things that you've seen and the things that people don't really consider, like what we spoke about before in a venue, how to be an entertainer, or, make sure you take lights and people can see you, things like that. If you can just give people a few shortcuts for the annoying things, that was my idea behind it, because our industry can be very secretive and cliquey sometimes. that
For sure.
you may never find these things out unless you stumble on them yourself. And I've just always been about sharing. If people want to know something, they can call up and I'll tell them. I'll be like, yep, this is how you do it. And I think we spoke about it. I had the guys from all the Aussies from LA on last week, and we spoke about this, that there's no point if you're successful at what you do, you don't have to feel like if you give away what you're doing that someone's going to steal your gig. They're not.
Yeah.
Like if you're successful, a venue wants more of that. So if you know somebody else who's as good as you, or in most cases with me, they're better than me, I want them at that venue. I want that venue to be successful. I want them making money because for the long term, you know, I don't want to go, they make 20K on the bar when we're there, so I want to look like a genius, and every other band only makes 7 or 8K on the bar. I don't want that. I want every week them to make 20K on the bar, because when that happens, everybody wins. Prices go up. You can ask for more money. That's something that's out there that it's a bit of a misconception that there's no money out there for bands. There is, but you got to work hard for it, and you've got to build a following, and you have to show. You can't just say, okay, the band's $1,000, and after you've played one gig, go, well, now the band's $1,400, and then the next time you play, you've got to play. Okay, I'm willing at, and this is just argument's sake, $1,000. I'll play for 6 months at $1,000, build a rapport with that venue, and then go, oh, look, we've been making you money for this amount of time. Can we bump it up? And they'll go, oh, well, what do you want to bump it up to? And I go, well, can you do 15? And they'll, most of the time, man, they'll go, no worries. Like you've got you got the runs on the board, the money in the bank, and they will work with you because you have helped make them successful. They're getting bonuses. You know, if they're hitting their targets in pubs, they're getting bonuses, and they want to keep that going, and they have the money to do it. You know, a lot of these places can do it. Some of them can't, and that's part of the understanding and the communication with the venues. But that whole thing of we've been getting the same money since the 80s, well, maybe because you haven't gotten better since the 80s. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Maybe it just, there's a reason why you're still making the same money as the 80s. And sometimes you got to say no too. You know, if a venue can't pay, then what we were talking about before, adapt, go, okay, well, I can offer you the trio for that money. I can't give you the 4-piece. But you have to be prepared to say no sometimes. And you'll be surprised when you say no, what happens, what comes back. But it's scary, man. It's scary to say no to gigs. But you have to back your own ability sometimes.
Yeah. Going back to, you've been hotel manager, restaurant manager, venue manager, I think it gives you a unique insight as to the inner workings of that kind of thing, to be able to, I mean, you're just saying then, I had no idea that the pubs and stuff get bonuses if they, I mean, how would you know that unless you've been a part of that, you know, for you to have done that and have that kind of, have that experience, I think that bodes well for you going into those negotiations and knowing what to do for those venues, which at the end of the day also helps you as well. Yeah, well,
say for instance, there's a really easy equation. It's like whatever you charge, whatever your band fee is, the pub or club needs to make 3 times that fee on the bar to break even, right?
Okay.
So anything over that, then that's profit. And that's what a venue wants to look at. They're like, okay, if I'm going to get, say, if I'm going to pay $3,500 for the radiators, say, then you've got to look at how many people you can put in the venue, what their average spend is going to be, will you get a flow on into the poker machines? Will people pay for dinner? But really, you need 11K just to break even, and 11K is a busy night, any night of the week, that's a good night. And then there's another thing. So we haven't really talked about volume restrictions, which is a big thing in Queensland and was big when I was at Narrabeen. And the problem that people have, and look, most people understand it, and there's silent stages now and in-ears and whatever else and column PAs. But on a few instances where I've had difficulty dealing with a band, getting them to turn down, it's understanding that. So take the Sands, for instance. You got a 3.5-star resort style hotel above, right?
Yep.
So on a Friday or Saturday night, you got someone paying $400 or $500 for a room for a night. And if the band downstairs, all you're hearing is, like you call up, you complain, right? So the manager comes down, tries to tell the band, look, you just got to just filter the bass out a little bit, just turn down a little bit. Like I have the vocabulary where I can talk to a band on their level, which helped me a lot to get them to turn down. But you've got 18, 19-year-old kids out there that are pub managers now. They don't have the vocabulary. So all they do is ask you to turn down. But say, for instance, that person has a really shitty night and they call up and they go, right, I want a refund. I didn't sleep all night. The band was too loud. I was upset. I got worked up. So then you offer a refund. So say you refund $400. They go away and they put on TripAdvisor what their experience was. So it's not just the $400 that you lost from them, but it's this thing that stays up there forever. It's a black mark against your venue for anybody who thinks they can come and have a good stay at the venue that you're running. And trying to get people to understand things outside of their circle and the little bubble that they're in order to make it better for them. Because if the band does the right thing and you have a good night, dude, you got a gig for life,
Yep.
But if you stuff it up, there's just a black pen. And not understanding the ramifications, as you said, having that background that I've had and being able to understand that, talk on their level and understand what it takes to have a successful night. It's, I'm so, whether you want to call it blessed or lucky or whatever, but it's something that informs everything I do as a working musician. And yeah, I love doing that. I love that job too, man. I absolutely love it. That's sort of where another reason for that Musicians In came out of, because when you're managing a whole lot of 18 and 19-year-olds, you start to realize that you can be a mentor to these kids and make them understand what they're working towards and help them out a little bit from where you've come from. So yeah, that's fed into the Musicians In show too, is just that mentor aspect of my personality that I want to share and help people where I can.
Yeah, you're a good man, Rob. Now, where can people find you?
So Facebook, Rob Rhodes Music. That's the easiest place, or roadtripent.com. So, but all the links are there on the Facebook. That's the easiest place to find me.
I'll put all the links in the show notes of this.
Cheers, mate. And man, you can, when we all get back gigging, you could throw a stone somewhere and you'll likely find me. Probably hit me with it, or see my yellow van on the M1 heading between Ballina and Noosa, Harvey Bay, whatever. But yeah, man, I just so lucky to be able to do this. And yes, we do a lot of kilometers and a lot of hours, but goddamn, when all things are firing, it's just an absolute treat to do what we do. And the people that I've met, lifelong friends, And the people that come to gigs and get so much joy, it's just, it makes it so worthwhile, which is why when this happened, I started the live stream shows almost like the second week, because there's a lot of people out there with lockdown, and I just wanted to stay in touch with them. They come to our gigs week after week. Some of them travel 3 hours to come to our gigs and pay for accommodation. And it was just a thank you, man. And kept me sane at the same time. Kept the chops up, the vocals and the guitar and the upskilling of learning all that tech, man. Like,
right.
That's, man, you talk about rabbit holes.
Can only be good.
That's a whole nother thing. I'm such a tech nerd, man. And
that's cool, man.
Love that stuff.
Really good. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you one-on-one this time.
Thanks, Stevie.
Away from the musicians in. I hope we can do something again soon, man.
Absolutely, man. Anytime.
Sweet as. All right, Rob Rhodes, thank you very much, man. See you soon.
Thank you. Thanks for listening.
Wanna take you on a trip in time. I hope you will understand. Peace is not easy to achieve when those with the power rule with iron hand. We are losing ground in the human race. So far away, we fall from grace. So long since we could stand up tall. Don't give up, we can break down the wall. Time, there's so many casualties at a price we are willing to bear. Generations are making the same mistakes and miscalculations.